On your tables, there's a card for JDRF. I want you all to take a look at this. Last year we made a goal to raise $100,000 for JDRF, and we did the Just One Crown program, and we did that. We've been doing about $20,000 a year for a number of years, and we were setting goals one day, and we said, well, how about 100? And I had really no idea we could reach 100. And but then again, we decided, well, it's like Lee talked about this morning, staying out of that gap, and what would happen if we hit 70? That would be excellent also. So anyway, thanks to all of you, we did 103,000 last year. So this year at a Dynamo, Brad and Stina are doing the part on goal setting, and I'm out of the room, and they bumped the goal on me to 250,000. So it's a little challenge for all of us. But if you read what's going on with juvenile diabetes, it's really pretty exciting. Nancy Granahan, as you know, has been very active in this, doing the walk, and that's a trophy that their walking team got last year. But what's going on is this encapsulation where they're actually now doing human testing on the beta cells and just put them sub-Q, and they start reproducing insulin without, they're not hooked to anything. They're just reproducing insulin as individual cells, and that's as close as and that's getting real close. So their human testing is now being approved. There are people actually at OHSU, which is in Oregon, being tested. There's a test group, and then there's a group that are, what do you call it, a placebo group, I guess, and they're actually doing the testing now. So this is going on, and so we're getting close. So that's where if you decide to if you want to make a pledge this year to it, fill it in. We will contact you and get your check. But we're thinking, and I've been introducing this to other people as well as patients around the country. I introduced it at our coach class last week, so they're all going to talk to their dentist. But if we got enough dentists to give the proceeds of $1 crown, it'd be real easy to raise $250,000. So that's our goal. That's what we're doing.
Bill, is this working? It is. So my wife Katie and I were talking last week about this very topic, and we decided that until $10,000 has been met, that we'll match up to $10,000.
Excellent.
So
thank you.
Anybody that wants to get that started,
well, this is really what it takes. And who was it? Was it Lee this morning said when people are asking for money to call them? Well, we've done that with JDRF, and I think it's 85% of the money actually goes into research, whereas so many of these organizations are so top-heavy. And as a matter of fact, the American Diabetic Association is a separate issue. That's a separate organization, and they deal with type 2 diabetes, which is, as most of you know, is really a lifestyle disease. I mean, it's type 1 is just luck of the draw. So I asked my friend Roy. I talked to Roy about this last year. We were hiking in Machu Picchu. We were doing marathons and stuff. We were hiking up this mountain. I was walking alongside this guy, talking to him. He's out of breath. He couldn't even answer me. But that's right. But anyway, I'm real proud of Roy, because here's what Roy does. Roy has, and he's been doing this his entire career. But part of the reason that we have such a great thing going, is we really do have organized dentistry. And I'm going to tell you, I'm one of the first ones to say that I don't agree with everything organized dentistry does. However, I've been what am I called now? I'm old enough, I think they call me a lifetime member. I'm not sure what that means. I don't think I pay dues anymore. But anyway, here's the deal. We got the strongest union in the country. We're not part of Obamacare. Think about that. The AMA, which only represents 30% of the... Well, think about this. The AMA only represents 30% of physicians in this country. And they came out in favor of the Affordable Care Act. But they don't represent 70% of the physicians. It's very interesting talking to them. Well, we're not part of that. We're not part of that. And this is part of what Roy is working on. And Roy belongs to he's always on 2 or 3 committees. I run into Roy in the mornings at the Ritz-Carlton. Come down at 6 o'clock in the morning, there's Roy sitting there on the couch one morning, going out for a jog or something. He's there for some committee meeting. So I asked Roy to speak to us for about 15 minutes and tell us what you're doing there.
Well, you've told it all. Can you hear me okay? No, that's good. He started real well. So let me, Jason Tabor said he needs a week here and a week there. Bill needs a crown. I need about 1.5 crowns. Let me read you this story. In 1951, a comedian, Red Skelton, and a party of friends flew to Europe where Skelton was to appear at the London Palladium. As they were flying over the Swiss Alps, 3 of the airplane's engines failed. The situation looked very grave, and the passengers began to pray. Skelton went into one of his best comic routines to distract them from the emergency as the plane lost height, coming closer and closer to the ominous-looking mountains. At the last moment, the pilot spied a large bill and made a perfect landing. Skelton broke the relieved silence by saying, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, you may return to the evil habits you gave up 20 minutes ago." So his joking advice, though, it underscores the truth that sometimes we make commitments when we're in a panic, and sometimes we live our professional lives in a panic. And I want to say today that as soon as that panic leaves, we change our behaviors often. Now, today when I'm talking, you have to filter every comment I make because I am a tried and true ADA believer. I'm probably an outlier. In fact, Kathy O'Loughlin, the executive director of the ADA, says when we interview or when we poll ADA members now, they call out the responses of all of the leaders because we skew the results so badly. So I'm an outlier. When I was 33, I got lucky and got appointed to a national committee. And I'll move to the center and keep talking. And so for about 3 years, I was 33 in 1986, and the ADA was suffering from membership, lack of membership among young dentists. There were only 4 out of 400 dentists that were under the age of 40 in leadership positions. So they pulled us together to brainstorm. That was the Committee on the Young Dentists. And some iteration of that committee is still there. I think it's the Committee on the New Dentists now. But apparently we weren't that successful because the ADA still is worried about young dentists and membership. And to say that our numbers are up is true. But the percentage membership in the ADA is flat, to say the very, very best. So as we go forward, the ADA, and you know this, that we talk about creating a niche in our practice. The problem with the ADA is the ADA has to be a little bit of everything to everybody. The ADA has gone from focusing on boomers to Generation X to the millennials or the Generation Y, and pretty soon we're going to be focusing on Generation Z. And so we have to do a little bit of everything for everybody. And y'all know what one dentist bill said this: you will never agree. We will not agree with everything the ADA says. But one of the things that I know is that they have the right ideas at the right time to keep us out of a panic. Bill said this, but I'm going to repeat it. The AMA, if you want to see your future without a strong association, look at the AMA and ask yourself, are you happier practicing dentistry than your physician counterparts? Now, I'm not sure if it's because of the ADA or because of Bill's coaching, but I know I am a whole lot happier in dentistry than my physician counterparts. I want to make sure that I say a couple of things. So here's the question I ask. Does ADA need you, or do you need the ADA? Well, I think we're in a symbiotic relationship. Maybe you're Esther or Yaman from Canada, and you really don't care what the AMA does. But I actually think for Canadians too, it's important because I think the ADA is a leader nationwide and around the world. Some of the questions I always ask is, you know, what kind of value does the ADA bring to our life and our practice? You know, just what does it do? Most dentists agree the biggest thing the ADA does is advocacy. That is typically in every response. Advocacy in Washington, D.C., advocacy in your state. And so that's something we rank high. But there are programs for everybody. About 20 years ago, the government was looking at ergonomic regulations. Do any dentists remember that? And those rules kind of disappeared. About 10 years ago, we were looking at red flag rules. Do y'all remember those? Do you remember what happened to them? They disappeared. Those things are not accidental. That's the Washington, D.C. office working behind the scenes. Right now, we're looking at amalgam separator rules and more restrictive ones. The ADA is fighting to get those reduced. So the ADA is always there fighting for these type of things. So I suggest that you place your bet with ADA. Here's some things that the ADA is working on. And you guys know this, but you forget about it. Anti-amalgam fights. Anti-fluoridation. Mid-levels. Insurance carriers. The ADA code that we have is something we're proud of, and the insurance carriers pay us to use that. Now, whether you're in an insurance plan or not, that still benefits you. So I know you guys are outliers in this group too. You are not the typical dentist. One of the things that I worry about when we talk about this, and Jason mentioned this, we talk about the ADA like there's somebody else. The ADA is you and me. So it really bothers me when we say, well, what are they doing? Because I want to ask, what are you doing? Have you been to the state legislature to talk to politicians? Like Jason said, have you volunteered at a mom clinic, a RAM clinic? Have you hosted a Give Kids a Smile event in your office? What have you done outside of yourself that's bigger than you to represent our profession? Have you invited a physician to lunch and talked about the benefits of fluoridation or the benefits of restoring somebody's smile and the self-esteem? What have you hosted maybe in your own office? Well, I know that in this group, you saw Jason, there are people in this group that have done many, many of those things. And I know if I answered the questions of all those questions, there would be no's to me. I haven't been out of the country and given my week, much less once a year. So I know that we can do better in those things. As loners, we're sort of loners in dentistry. I'm in private practice. And so we can sort of question ourselves. When my new patient numbers start falling, first thing I think is, what have I done to tick off my referral sources? When somebody says no to a treatment plan, I go, well, there's my lack of communication skills. When an employee quits, what's the first thing I do? I say, oh gosh, I must not have been that encouraging. So we question ourselves and we can manage out of fear. But I think that one of the things the American Dental Association does for us is kind of smooth out the peaks and valleys of our careers. Now, I know one of the things I've got better at with Bill's coaching, and I should say thank you for this, is I tend to have honed that skill of leadership and not react so much, but kind of plan ahead. And, the Dental IQ group, the peak performances, dynamos, all those kind of help in that respect. But I know one of the things that we can do is, as parents, we talked about this at our table when we were sharing some things. We have times that are peaks and valleys as parents. When you're dealing with a child and they're terrible twos, or for us that are a little older and have kids that are teenagers, there are times that I really question my parenting sanity, or maybe even question why I had kids. Sometimes when we're in a crisis in dentistry, I think, and I've heard this among some of you, you question the career path. You've looked at dentistry and said, hey, am I going to get out of dentistry now? Well, I think the ADA is our resource, and Bill, but the ADA is our resource to smooth through those peaks and valleys, and with good leadership at the American Dental Association, that's what we do. So, when you walk away, I know somebody said, well, what did Roy Thompson say? Well, Roy he gave us the ADA party line. Well, from inside the ADA party line, we call that the truth. So I hope you listen to this and go, maybe I don't know something about the ADA that I really should know. And I encourage you that you get involved within your association. There are so many ways that you can be involved. But the one you can do and you must do is pay your dues. So once in a while I see some comments on Dental IQ about, hey, what's the ADA doing? Why am I paying my dues? And I promise my one paragraph response has been clipped by 3 paragraphs just so that you'll read it. So I appreciate the time to talk today, Bill. I appreciate everything you've done for my practice. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Couple of things. Just to make it real easy on the ADA dues, just bring your family to Chicago, go stay at the Ritz-Carlton one weekend, and make your reservations through the ADA website, and that will cover your dues for the year. It's that simple. One thing that I'm working on, I've been invited to be part of a, I think it's a panel discussion. I'm not really sure. I go in 2 weeks, I fly back here to Chicago for 2 days. It's called an experts panel on finance for dentists. And one of my issues is this whole idea of these young doctors graduating right now, $400,000 in debt, student debt. And we've got a problem. I mean, this is a problem for all of us in this room. They're graduating $400,000 in student debt, and they're being told by the dental school instructors and the professors there that their only way they're going to get out of this thing is go to work in corporate dentistry. Now, I've made a decision not to get involved in corporate dentistry. In the last 3-4 months, we've been approached by several large groups that say, we'd like you to come work with us. But you know, who was it? Somebody in this room, I think it was Jason, was telling Carolyn yesterday that Heartland, now listen, these are all good people. What I'm going to say, I don't want to be disparaging about people, but Heartland moved in next door, and there'd been a doctor there for 30 years. The new doctor comes, has been out of school 6 months. Jason goes over and makes friends with this dentist, and you know, within a couple weeks, all of a sudden, the assistant's over in Jason's office. Hey, he needs some help. And in the middle of a procedure, this young doctor needs help. Shep said it. You guys are all owners. And with owners comes responsibility. Who said that? Rise said it. When you're owner of a practice, there's responsibility. With corporate dentistry, I just work here. Now think about that. I mean, think about the shift that's going to take place with corporate dentistry, and I'm going to work as hard as I can for that not to happen. So one of my things I'm going to work on with this panel is we've got to get to these dental schools. And if you know people on in these dental schools, and I know some, Dennis for one is on a faculty, you know, we've got to make it available so these kids can work. Now, Howard Ferran and I did a podcast last week, and if you get a chance, you can Google it. It's Dental Town, Howard Ferran, Blatchford, and you'll see it. And one of the things we talked about is the fact that when many of us were in school, as a matter of fact, I had to cut off the conversation after a while. I said, well, Howard, you and I could reminisce about this forever, about the old days, but let's move on. Because we were talking about we all worked. And so we came out of school with virtually no student debt. That made a huge difference. But do the math. $400,000 in debt, and I'll run through it with you. And I just recently spoke to a group here at Midwest Dental School, and I ran through with them on a flip chart, and I said, so what are your teachers telling you? Oh, go get a job at corporate dentistry. I said, let's say you make $150,000 a year. You got $400,000 of debt. Do any of you know what the payments are going to be? Roughly $50,000 a year for the next 10 years. So let's take your $150,000 and let's subtract the first thing. Let's take $50,000 away in taxes. Because these are students that have never paid taxes before. They don't know. They get their first salary, $150,000. Now they're down to $100,000. They pay the bank $50,000 for student debt. That leaves them $50,000 to live on. How's that working? See, we got to change this. This has got to change, and we've got to do something about it. So if you're in a position to get to these dental schools, and I don't know why this culture has shifted so that students go through not working while they're in dental school. I don't get it. I mean, it's just something we've got to work on. So anyway, that's what we're working on.